That's Steven Guilbeault ahead of his first Liberal caucus meeting since quitting cabinet over last week's federal energy agreement with Alberta, a deal that would see the feds waive clean energy regulations in exchange for the province negotiating an increased industrial carbon price, all in pursuit of a new bitumen pipeline to the Pacific. Something Mr. Guilbeault said he couldn't back, calling the agreement a, quote, serious mistake. But he has decided to stay in the Liberal caucus, and Mr. Guilbeault is with us live in studio right now. Hi there. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
My pleasure, Vashi.
Have you had any regrets since your decision?
No, I've not.
Why not?
It's a tough decision. I mean, as a cabinet minister, you have a responsibility to tell your prime minister what you feel is the right thing or the wrong thing to do. And if you disagree with a policy or a decision by the government in our parliamentary system, then as a cabinet minister, your only recourse is to leave. And this is what I did.
So I had read a story, and maybe it was wrong, but it seemed, well placed the night before you quit, essentially saying, a source close to you was saying that you were going to remain in cabinet because you felt you could have more influence, essentially, over the direction of climate policy or what was to come than outside of cabinet. Less than 24 hours later, you quit. What changed in that period?
I mean, from the first moment I saw a draft of the agreement, the memorandum of understanding between the federal government and Alberta, I voiced my my strong opposition, and I told people, I told those people who were with me that I understood that me opposing this would have some consequences, i.e. me leaving cabinet. And from that day on, Tuesday, Wednesday, tried to work like, are there changes that could be made to the agreement? But by then it was pretty baked in, and the changes that were made were largely cosmetic and didn't change the nature of the agreement. Like I felt, and I feel, we left a lot on the table for not getting a lot in return. This idea that we have to abandon our clean electricity regulation that will help us clean up our electricity grid across the country for decades to come, in exchange for Alberta putting a better price on pollution. They already have to do that because of the federal pricing system. So we're not getting anything in return. Alberta's not giving Canadians a better deal out of that. I have supported the Pathways project to capture carbon and store it in the ground for many years, but people have to understand that it's not a magic bullet. It will help reduce pollution from the oil sands sector by about 12%. It's not 50%, certainly not 100%. It's 12%. And 12% is not nothing, but it will still make oil sands one of the most carbon intensive in the world. Like right now, it's about 10 times more pollution intensive than oil that's produced in Newfoundland, for example. So it's going to be slightly better, but it'll be nowhere near what's produced even in other parts of Canada, let alone the North Sea or elsewhere in the world.
The grand bargain and all that you just said, we put to your colleagues, including the person who succeeded you in this position in the days in the wake of your exit, on multiple occasions in great detail, like how the thesis that they seem to be putting forward is the increase, whatever we're able to negotiate in the form of an increase to the industrial price on carbon, will mitigate the impact of the rollback of these other policies. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, not with the current agreement. To mitigate the losses of measures we're willing to leave on the table in order to get this agreement with Alberta, the price on pollution would have to be almost 3 times as high as what is currently being proposed. So there's an Environment Canada estimates that to get to the same result in terms of reduction of pollution just using industrial carbon pricing and taking clean electricity regulation out of the equation, you'd have to have a price on pollution of about $400 a ton. And we're talking right now about $130 a ton. So, I mean, the math doesn't add up. And frankly, I think that my government needs to be honest with Canadians, with the rollbacks that we've seen over the past few months on different climate change measures that have been adopted over the years by me and some of my predecessors. It is impossible to see how we achieve our 2030 targets. And we knew it was going to be difficult. When I was minister, you and I have had this conversation. We knew it was going to be challenging. It's impossible now. And I think we need to come clean. We need to tell Canadians it won't work. We won't get there. And the Prime Minister, he's the Prime Minister. If he wants another strategy, he wants another approach, he can do that. But we also have to tell Canadians what's the new plan and what does that plan lead us to. And right now, even achieving net zero, so carbon neutrality by 2050, it is very hard for me to see how we get there with what has been announced so far.
So you think even that target is in jeopardy now?
Yes. Yes.
Did you convey this at any point to the Prime Minister? Like, was there, not to say that you would disclose all the details, but like, has there been a frank conversation about this between you and the Prime Minister specifically?
Last week, I've had a couple of conversations with the Prime Minister, and they were very honest and frank and respectful. Where I told them many of the things that I'm telling you now, and where eventually I told them that I was no longer the person to be able to help him continue support his agenda on this issue. Now, why stay in caucus? Why stay?
You beat me to the punch, right? Because, and I'll frame the question if you don't mind, because I think a lot of Canadians watching would ask that question. If you don't feel like you can defend, on principle, essentially, you have to resign from cabinet because of the agenda that they're pursuing. How can you stay in the government? Period.
Well, I have a profound disagreement with the Prime Minister on how he and his team want to continue moving forward on climate change. And as I said, I don't see the plan. I don't see the math right now. And maybe they can prove me wrong in the coming months. That being said, I still think that the best person to serve Canadians and to help us, to guide us through those difficult times we're going through is Mark Carney. Without Prime Minister Carney, we would not have had the historic investment in the arts and culture that was in the last budget. We certainly wouldn't have measures that are continue to support Canadians, like childcare, like dental care. The Conservative Party of Canada have said time and time again that they would get rid of those measures. These measures are helping people, like thousands of dollars back in the pockets of Canadians. So
why do something, pardon the interruption, why do something so politically damaging to the Prime Minister in removing yourself from cabinet? Why not stay around the table and fight for the things that you're describing tonight?
I mean, I've tried to do that with as much tact as I could. I didn't leave the room throwing grenades around and accusing people of this and that. I think I've been very respectful of the Prime Minister and the government, but I felt that I owed it to him, to my colleagues, and to my constituent to be true to myself and to be able to look myself in the mirror. Like, I don't know, Vashi, how I would have been able to say with a straight face that this is an agreement that I can support. Now, I support the Prime Minister's intention of making sure that all Canadians feel they have a place in the Federation, but we played in that movie before. We bought a pipeline. We announced that before the 2019 election, and we lost all our seats in Alberta and Saskatchewan in the 2019 election.
But maybe because it wasn't about the seats, like, how is it okay to buy that pipeline but not build another one? Like, you stood by that Prime Minister then.
Actually, I never supported that pipeline.
You didn't, but you still stayed in cabinet.
No, I wasn't in cabinet when that decision was made. And when I ran in 2019, I specifically said that I disagreed with the pipeline, but I agreed with many of the other things that the Prime Minister of the time, Prime Minister Trudeau, was doing, specifically on climate change and nature. And as you know, politics is about compromise. In a country of 40 million people, you know you're not going to win all your battles, but at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and say this is a place where I can't go, and respectfully say that I have to leave cabinet. Do
you think that you can remain in you plan to remain? Like, do you plan to run in the next election, for example, under the Liberal banner? Like, do you or are you seriously considering your future outside of just cabinet because of this?
I plan to stay a member of the Liberal caucus and to continue play an active role on these issues that are important to me, certainly the environment, climate change, nature, culture as well. I was culture minister twice, 2019 to 21, and until recently, I was climate, identity, culture and nature. I honestly, the dust is still settling since my decision of last week. but I'm definitely there for the coming months.
So you haven't decided beyond that?
Let's talk. Let's have another conversation.
I will definitely invite you. I just wanted to ask one final question, because as you were speaking, I was thinking, like, you know, to be fair to the Prime Minister, he hasn't made a secret of his economic agenda, right? And he's been clear right through the election around the desire to make Canada a conventional, an energy superpower, but inclusive in that conventional. I can think of the first interview I conducted with him after the swearing-in ceremony, in which I asked about some key environmental policies that Alberta had identified as irritants to development. He indicated even then that he was open to rolling them back because of his desire to see big projects and big things get done. Like, why now is this such a surprise in a way? Like, what did he not disclose that prompted this drastic of a decision?
Well, I mean, I certainly support the. I think that there's been mixed messages that have been sent over time. I certainly support the idea of making sure that, you know, Canada is an energy superpower. In my view and the view of many of my colleagues, this is a green superpower, like critical minerals, renewable energy, clean technologies, and there are many of these things that are part of the plan right now that I still support.
So is oil and gas.
But the this idea that, and I was even willing to entertain a conversation about a pipeline if done properly. One of the things that was difficult with the agreement was the fact that we had made an agreement with Elizabeth May from the Greens to support us in the budget by not including a specific subsidy to oil and gas, and it's explicitly stated in the budget that we wouldn't do that, and then we turn around 2 weeks later and we put it in this agreement with Alberta. That was I was one of the person who was asked to work with Ms. May.
Did you help convince her to support the budget?
I did. I wasn't the only one, but I did, and I felt that this was not a genuine gesture on our part. She supported us in good faith. I don't think she will support us moving forward. I think that bridge has been burned, and to me that was something that was difficult to accept. I think, yes.
But again, like, I guess I just wonder, like, he has made it explicit from the beginning that he wanted to see oil development. Like, sort of, you know, obviously his track record prior to is why Conservatives doubted those statements, but he has said it on numerous occasions. Like, why, when it was in black and white, did it surprise you in the end?
Well, actually, our platform talked about making Canada an energy superpower, but we weren't specific about projects and things we wanted to do. And I understood why the Prime Minister decided to get rid of the consumer carbon pricing. Like, it was very controversial, politically controversial. I understood when we decided to pause the regulation for electric vehicles. The auto sector is going through a rough time right now, but it was the accumulation of, like, abandoning the emissions on the cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector. Even if we do pathways, so if we capture that carbon and we store it for oil sands, we'll be worse off from an emissions perspective, from a pollution perspective, if we add another 1 million barrels from a new pipeline, even with carbon capture and storage, than the current situation. We're worse off, according to a study by the Pembina Institute in Alberta. So it's the accumulation of these things that led me to this decision.
Okay, I will leave it on that note. Thanks for your time as always, Mr. Guilbeault. I appreciate it very much.